like to welcome Brad Fieldhouse, the originator and CEO of CityNet. Brad is the person we call with the boots on the ground who does a lot of work with the folks in our community who are homeless. And so, Brad, we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alliance, for letting me be part of this important conversation. I see a lot of my colleagues out there. My name is Brad Fieldhouse. I want to tell you a snippet of my story before I get into some of these numbers. So I'm a pastor. I'm an ordained pastor in the Reformed Church in America. I had no idea that I was going to get involved in homelessness. I was from Long Beach, and I was pastoring a church there, and sort of one of the things, I know there's faith-based groups here, that's why I want to sort of invite you to this conversation by telling you my story, is that, one of the things that's incredible about God, again, I'm going to tell you my story, is that his love is vast and comprehensive and able to speak to situations and circumstances, especially on a day like today, right, when there's unspeakable tragedy in the world, and we just cry out and we just hope and pray that there's a God who understands and who's sympathetic. One of the things that I've learned, and I learned this from a Catholic priest, is that he describes God's love and it leans towards the marginalized. And it leans towards the disenfranchised. It's for everyone. But God's heart leans towards those that are finding themselves in really difficult situations. That's great comfort to me, because when we're out in the flood control channel and the cities and all the places we're at, we are believing it is never a good day to be homeless, but it's a better day in Orange County to be homeless, because things are starting to work themselves out, and lots of people like yourselves are coming out on a Sunday afternoon to engage and be part of solutions. So it's never good, but it's getting better. Is that I'm believing in supernatural intervention. I don't know how to tell somebody to stop taking heroin. I'm still trying to not eat McDonald's French fries. It's just the truth.
Why?
Heroin is, I don't know if heroin is worse for you. I have no idea what's in those French fries. But they're amazing. It's the truth. I didn't even tell you that. I feel better though. So when we were in a faith-based community, we were going and wrestling with this. How do we as people of community of faith, who we understand that to be surrounded by these challenges, to think about the other, is an incredible challenge to sort of how do we position our lives to orientate ourselves around not ourselves. It's real difficult for us as Americans, but how do we look towards the other and position ourselves, because we need it. Not that people out there need frozen turkeys and toys. That is not the answer. It's not stuff. It's the brokenness of lives, and we get the opportunity to enter into the pain of that with other people that are experiencing incredibly difficult situations. So somebody said, I'll bring peanut butter, you bring jelly, I'll bring bread. We made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and we went down to the park. I had no idea it was illegal to feed homeless people in a park 3 times in a 90-day period. It's illegal. I had no idea. I was a pastor of a church. Breaking the law. Now, some may say you're supposed to break the law, but the point was, I was thinking, I'm not sure we should be doing this, and that began my journey. So I came home from a meeting in Long Beach, in the neighborhood I lived at, where neighbors had gathered. No city folk were there, it was just the neighbors. And they said, they were listing the things that are perpetuating the homeless problem and things that are alleviating the homeless problem in our neighborhood. And I lived 2 blocks up from the homeless park in downtown Long Beach. This is 2001. And the number 2 problem, thank God, was not, the first problem was drugs and alcohol, according to these neighbors. The second one was churches, who would come after one after another, not know what the other one was here 45 minutes before, and they would just kind of come, and it created this sort of health challenge at this park. And fortunately, I had not opened my big fat mouth yet in that meeting. And I went home that night and I started the nonprofit that's now called CityNet, as a way of saying, wait a second, there has got to be ways for an ordinary person like me. I have a theology degree, but I'm not a social worker. I can be strategic, but that's not what I was running a customer relations firm while planting churches. That's what I was doing. It caused me to say, you know what, people like me need to get involved. So I tell you that story because people like you need to be involved in this. So it's important that you take that back to your networks and to your houses of worship and to your businesses and others and say, we have a role to play. The other reason I tell you that story is because there's a role to be played. I didn't realize that while I would love for those of you that are interested in fooding, we organize and coordinate all the meals over at the courtyard. We serve 21 meals a week, hundreds and hundreds of people. If that's what you want to do is feed, come talk to us. We'll help you get certified so that you can get safe food handling certified, and we'll find a spot for you to come over and serve at the courtyard. But there's lots of other creative ways to get involved. So I tell you that story just to really implore you. Anytime I get in meetings like this, I want to say, come be part of this solution. There are roles that you can play. Let's work together. Let's find that strategic role for you, and let's figure out what it is. It's probably not haphazardly just showing up with some leftovers from a business meeting and bring it over to our RV parked out in the flood control channel right now. We actually don't want it. I'm about to enter into a season of uncomfortable truths, where I'm going to have to break the hearts of lots of people who bring lots of stuff. Blankets up the wazoo, real nice ones from Costco. They're like super soft. And I'm going to say everyone in here has got about 30 blankets already. That's actually not necessary. I wish you would have called me before, because I believe in stewardship. Let's align resources to be highly impactful. Now, we will redirect you to other places that will utilize those, but the uncomfortable truth is that why your kids are now crying on Thanksgiving Day is that we're not going to take your blankets from you, and they're actually not needed here. Sorry. But not really. Call me next time and let's plan something. So that's sort of the space that I sort of live in. I tell you that just, so CityNet works in cities, and we now work in a couple county contexts, and we sort of view ourselves as sort of the treasure hunting connector of all the various entities in a city. One of the things I learned quickly with my story in Long Beach is there's amazing people working today on this front. You've met some of them, there's a bunch of them scattered in this room. There are amazing people who are just have given their life to this call, and you're in good company. So part of what is encouraging is how do we make sure the left hand knows what the right hand's doing, and those that want to get involved find on-ramps or off-ramps, in some cases, into this cause. And so that's sort of what we've been doing. We work in a bunch of cities in Orange County. I started in Anaheim. I'm not from Orange County. We started in Anaheim in 2014. We've been able to street exit over 800 people from the city of Anaheim. We work in a bunch of cities now, and we work for the county. We are the service coordinator in partnership with the Midnight Mission at the Courtyard, and we are now also the agency, the nonprofit that sort of is coordinating all those similar resources in the flood control channel. So if you go down the 57 freeway and you see an RV, a really old RV parked over there with a banner on it, that's us as a collaborative center for this pilot period. And I've got some data that I'm going to share with you. One more thought. When we talk about homelessness, which is sort of who are the homeless, which is sort of the beginning conversation in a series of conversations that we're going to be having here, is who is homeless. And I'm always reminded, particularly when you bump into people, is that the almost homeless population is significantly larger than the homeless population. I could tell you story after story of people who, because of a doctor bill, because of a loss of a paycheck, or because of a punch, they find themselves in the flood control channel, or behind a 7-Eleven in Anaheim, or in wherever. So the almost homeless population, the McKinney-Vento homeless youth, that number is like over 30,000 students in the Orange County public school system are considered homeless by the Department of Education definition. Meaning they're not like, well, some of them actually are still living on the streets, but they're not in a place suitable for human thriving, such as two definitions of homelessness. There's the HUD definition, which is street level, which you probably would think are the typical homeless. Then there's those that are living in circumstances like motels. That's like 30,000, or doubling up in an apartment. They are not living in a place for human thriving. And that's the almost homeless population. So we're not just, the numbers here are not incredibly huge like LA County, but they are significant. All right, I can go on and on. I want to give you some stats here on the flood control channel. We did a census prior to us going out there in July. We did a tent count. So we went out there ahead of time and we just walked up and down. So our flood control, and you've probably read about this in the paper. Most people that would come to these meetings sort of at least have a cursory knowledge of what's going on out there. So 5 Freeway, Chapman, up to Ball. So Anaheim Stadium, Honda Center. that section right there. We first did a tent count where we just sent our team in. I looked like a cop, so I didn't go participate in this because everyone thinks I'm a cop. I'm not a cop. I've shot a gun once. So we did tent counts. So we went and we just did a quick tent assessment. We actually mapped it out so we knew we were going to go talk to people. And then we came back a couple weeks later and we actually did a census. Census means we talked to everybody. We did it over a number of days. Different than a point-in-time count. We did it over a week. We went out sometimes with law enforcement, sometimes with ourselves. A lot of partner agencies came with us, and we identified 422 people living in that section. So if their breath reeks of alcohol, and they tell me they don't have an alcohol problem, I'm going to write down they don't have an alcohol problem. Because that's what they told me, self-reporting. I'm not going to assume, it's going to create a dialogue, and these are those answers for the days that we talked to them. Just some stats, which are interesting, and you could look at all this. Men and women, 61% men, 38% women. 54% of them, less than 2 years they've been out there. 27.6, again, self-reporting, 27.6 less than a year, which is a critical juncture. The sooner the better we can get them, as Karen was saying, the sooner we can get them housed, the better, because the more it gets complicated. And it gets complicated and it gets disillusioned. If I was homeless, we got a guy out of there. His name's Richard. That's his actual name because he's making us say his actual name now. Because he says, if you're going to tell my story of success, tell my story of success. So his name is Richard. He was living in the flood control channel for 17 years. 17. We just happened to be there the day he says, I'm ready today. And then a whole series of events, lots of people working together. He's now in permanent supportive housing. I've got a picture on my phone, him going like this, if you want to see a picture of him. 17 years, and people that have been there for, literally they're fleeing a really horrible situation. On and on and on and on. Sooner we can get to them, the better. Of encouragement to our team, and this would be disputed potentially with what you're reading in the paper these days, but our survey found that 81.2% of people wanted help. I'll say that again. 81.2% of people actually wanted help. Now, who knows what that accurate number is? That's what the people told us. And so we write down what they said. And I actually believe it. Part of the challenge is that if you're homeless, it's real difficult. It's actually no place. None of those people, when they grew up, said, I cannot wait someday, I hope to be there. It's a really difficult place to live, actually, in the flood control channel, and behind a 7-Eleven, for that matter. It's really difficult. And so they built trust, and trust is scarce, and so they built up these relationships. And oftentimes it's really difficult, particularly if you've been out there for a while. If I was out there, I would probably have a drug habit. And I'd probably be an alcoholic. One of the things that I know about being a pastor is I know lots of people who have drug problems, alcohol problems, all sorts of problems. They just happen to not be homeless. So the reality is these are people just like you and I who have similar problems. They just happen to be able to, unfortunately, have to do it in public or behind a tarp. But the same sort of human condition, and the more you get down that road, the more chronic you are. For Richard, I'm telling you, it took a Herculean effort of lots of organizations. You know, on the street level, which is where our teams work a lot of the times, is sort of that regular engagement is what makes a difference. So are you interested in rehab today? Nope. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then after, not tomorrow, how about I'll see you tomorrow? And that's really what it takes, which is true. If you just come and say, hey, if someone's going to come up to me today, someone actually, I did this, and they ordered French fries from one of these like drive places, and then they brought me French fries at the end of the meeting. Don't do that. But somebody's just going to come up to me and just come up to me and say, hey, you shouldn't eat McDonald's French fries. I'm a doctor. I'd be like, thanks for that input. Appreciate it. Yeah. It's going to take the fact that I need to start to know that you actually sort of care before you actually say, no, I am serious. I had an uncle in the next interactions. I had an uncle that died of McDonald's French fries, I guess. That's sort of what we're doing out there in all these places, is going out there being that sort of face and say, hey, I know it's difficult to call 211. You should call 211. There's limited resources, but let's get you through the system that does exist while the system's getting better. So I got lots of other stuff that I'll throw at you, but...
All right, well, thank you. You can trust me on this, that French fries stunt your growth. give us something very helpful in terms of if there's somebody here who's a person of faith or a person of goodwill that just wants to be part of the solution. Don't just jump in, collect your stuff, and go dump it somewhere. That's very, very helpful. But talk to me on a little bit more of a deeper level, because you made the distinction between the HUD definition of homeless and then the school definition of living in a non-thriving environment. How does someone get involved to help people from moving from that non-thriving environment that's still technically housed in some ways into the street? How can we help people in a coordinated way not fall off that ledge?
Yeah. What an incredible opportunity it is when somebody allows you into the brokenness of their world, right? None of us want to get people involved in the mess of our lives, right? I mean, who wants that? You know, things aren't working out, I've got a drug problem, and you know, particularly with people of faith. That's why I want to sort of encourage you and grab you, is because we come from a place that believes in transformation and hope. And it takes that kind of thing to encourage people a lot of times. So I would encourage you to pray, go back to your context and be that antagonist, spur into the saddle that says, we as a people of faith, from our tradition, we've got to do something. So go back and get your group mobilized. Because there's lots of ways you can get involved. Pray, be informed. I would say read all those documents. Become smart on the topic. Just because it really makes a difference. And then you begin to say that there's things you can do. One of the roots, I use that term, what we don't need is frozen turkeys and toys. But one of the things that is complicated, but it's also the most desperately needed, is community and relationship. That's what the root of this is: brokenness. And they've burned a lot of bridges. It's not stuff and a better phone number. It's really people who genuinely care. So that's really the invitation. All through the spectrum of the continuum of care, there are ways for you to exercise that. Sometimes it's as simple as working at a nonprofit or a shelter, James, you need help at the armory, or go. And just the human interaction, hey, thank you. God bless you today. Enjoy this oatmeal. Sometimes it's that, all the way to helping people move in when they get into these apartments. You'd be surprised how little they actually have when they get a key to an apartment. I have seen faith groups, and other groups in particular, make sure that the kitchen dish towels match the placemats at the table that match the little "God bless this home" sign that they end up leaving on the counter. I've seen lots of those kind of stories. And then ongoing, once they get housed, as we've been talking about, we want to make sure that there's a group of people who say, check in. There's a guy, I'll tell my story. There's a guy in all the cities in which we work, we ask law enforcement, give us your top 5 frequent flyers. We'll start there. Because if we can solve that. So one of these frequent flyers in Anaheim, he'd been homeless in Anaheim for 30 years. Alcoholic. College educated. I hate literature. Just any chance I get I don't like this old, like English literature. Those are the worst classes that I took in high school. Just putting it out there. Anyone else? You're gonna get one witness at least. This guy loved literature. He was super well read, and he would actually read whatever the classics, whatever all that means. His request was that somebody would come over and read to him and dialogue with him about some of the great stories that have been written over time. And so that's what we helped coordinate, is somebody to just go there every day and read with him. And when he was sober, this is what he wanted to do. When he was lonely, he drank. Simple things like that are lots of ways that you can sort of go back and help reintroduce community. It's risky. They do not need people to come fix them. They need people who will come and listen and care and love. And exchange human to human. And it's amazing what happens when the human spirit comes back alive when that happens. So,
thank you very much. Okay, friends.